Greetings and thank you for joining us at FutureMoneyTrends.com. I'm here with Marin Katusa. He's the Chief Energy Advisor for KC Research. We have several questions from members, wrote them down, and if you could only make one investment for the next 10 years, what would it be?
One investment over the next 10 years. I've made two recent investments. Are we talking about current investments or a sector moving forward? Or it's a very broad question.
Well, I mean, however you want to take it. If you were only allowed to make, if the government of Canada came and said, you're only allowed to do one investment at a time now, and it's got to be locked up for 10 years.
For 10 years? Well, usually when I do my personal investments, I like to go for 5 to 7 years. I'll tell you a story. When I started Copper Mountain with the team, I found these great guys, Jim O'Rourke and Ron Shire. That's my number one rule, is finding amazing people who are willing to write big checks themselves.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had a 5-year plan to put this into production on. Well, we hit the 5 years, and I realized that I had to rewrite my 5 years, and I'm coming on to 10 years. So that's actually not a ridiculous time frame. So there's a company that I've almost been involved for 10 years. So I think it would start with people, great people. And that's what this conference is about. The map room table is investing in great people. So what I've recently done is I bought more BRI because of Amir Adani. I truly think that this guy in 20 years is going to be exactly what people are talking about Robert Friedland today.
Yeah.
I know Robert Friedland well. I met him through Doug. It's Doug's best friend. So I've been lucky enough to be exposed to all these big legends early on, got to know them, and figured out that there's patterns to success. So I would definitely invest in the right people. Another one is PRD Energy with Michael Greenwood. These are the right type of people. Here's a guy that wrote an $11 million check and has basically said, I'm going to finance the next 18 months myself.
Yeah.
And he's putting another $20 million into his company. You follow the right people, the Lucas Lundins, the Keith Hills, the Robert Friedlands, the Rick Rules. The key to success, if you're going to go 10 years, look, the commodity prices are going to change, the politics in these jurisdictions change, but if you find great people, they're going to figure out where to go for success.
Yeah. For the resource sector in general, are we in a bear market for the junior resource stocks?
A secular bear market for sure.
Okay. The Fed has kept the economy propped up, I guess, and we've seen a huge stock market rally. But even cyclically, you would have a normal recession every 6 or 7 years. So it could be likely that we have just a normal cyclical recession next year or in the next 2 years. What are you thinking for the resource stocks? I mean, it's almost like they've been beat up, but if the economy slows, I mean, you could be looking at, just a decapitation strike against a lot of these juniors.
Not really, actually. I would disagree with that. For example, if you're investing in the right management teams, they're going to use that as an opportunity to consolidate and strengthen not just their balance sheet, but their portfolio of projects. Look what Amir just did with BRI. He went and he's got a strong balance sheet, he's got a strong management team, and they took over a company which now he's got close to 4 million ounces of gold. He's doubled his ounces of gold. And that's just the beginning of the story. I hope there's more weakness in this because I've invested in the strong management teams. It's people.
Yeah.
I can't emphasize this enough. And here's a guy that's now has 4 million ounces. The biggest investors in the business backed that other company, but the management weren't A players. Whereas Amir is an A player and he can consolidate this. And I won't be shocked that looking 3 to 5 years down the road, Amir's going to have over 10 million ounces of gold.
What's interesting about that deal is JP Morgan, they paid $1.30 last year. I guess they financed it at $1.30, right?
Yeah, it was around $1.20 and change, I believe.
And Amir's acquiring it for about 13 cents.
Correct.
I mean, this seems like...
But this is exactly what...
How does this... Yeah.
But that's because there's an opportunity. The market is weak and the strong guys are going to consolidate. This happens every 20 years in our sector. That's what Robert Friedland did. That's what Lucas Lundin did. I'll tell you a story about Africa Oil. I was the first to write up the first research report on Africa Oil. And there's a private company called Turkana Energy. And Lucas Lundin and Keith Hill saw the opportunity. This is at the bottom. It was January 2009. To write a $30 million check was a very difficult thing to do. Lucas stood up and said, I'm doing $10 million myself personally. Because that's what strong management teams do. They back their own deals. He paid $7 million for that asset, which eventually now today is valued at $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
And it's going higher. So this is what the right guys can do in this type of market. And, you can't beat these guys because this is what they do full time. But you can have major wealth creation by backing the right players in the business.
What's amazing is BRI 75 cents with just over 1 million ounces of gold. BRI 75 cents with 4 million ounces of gold.
In this market, nobody cares. But that's why you want to buy it. Not only is the KCR fund buying stock right now, myself personally is buying stock. I'm going to continue to buy stock. And whether it's $1.20 or 75 cents, I'm not here for the near term. I'm not looking to trade the stock on a weekly basis. Amir's 35 years old. I'm looking to make money as he's getting older and smarter and better. And when you got guys like Jim Mellon, who's on the board of this other company, he's the Warren Buffett of the UK. I hope that Jim Mellon sees the potential that Amir has and joins the board of BRI. And you have Tocqueville, which is a major gold fund invested, JP Morgan. People are going to recognize the talent that Amir's put together. And this story's just beginning. It's still in its infancy.
Yeah,
I'm looking 5 to 10 years out.
not all of them have to do with investing. So we're hoping to kind of give you some ones from left field.
Let's have fun.
Could you do it again? If left with nothing, could you become a millionaire, and how would you do it?
Exactly the way I did it the first time.
And how was that?
Basically get into something, become as knowledgeable as you can as possible, submerge yourself into it, and take some big risks. Get in on these things early, find the right people who you can learn from. It doesn't mean you're going to have success, but with my story, I saw the big potential first in tungsten, then the uranium, and then get out there, meet people, read, find your passion and develop that. It might not be resources for your people, but it might be biotech, it might be whatever it is, but you have to follow your passion. And I truly think the first step, if you want to become truly a successful investor, it doesn't matter in what. It could be in utilities, it can be in pharmaceuticals. You have to follow your passion. If you don't love doing, for example, I love going out, I've been involved in building a copper mine. If you don't like going out there and kicking rocks and getting out there with the miners and the geologists and the engineers and raising the money and dealing with the politicians and the social issues and the natives and all these aspects, you're not going to succeed at it unless you love it. So follow your passion. That's the only thing I could say is follow your passion.
It's great advice. What are some things you see as opportunities right now for young people specifically, as far as sectors, jobs, businesses to start?
Look, if you're a young, aggressive, hardworking guy, and let's just say you don't have an inclination towards education or the academic or the financial world, you go to a copper mine, you could start making base $100,000 a year driving a truck. That's just base. That's not including bonus.
That's high school diploma, or
you take a training course to learn how to drive the bigger trucks, and it's beautiful. It's air conditioned. It's all. Now, if you want to get into the speculation and all that, you can get into building your own company for drilling or any sorts of. These are guys in Australia right now who are making $250,000 a year. It's just roughnecks.
Yeah.
But if I was a young guy today, I would really try to get into speculating a percentage of my net worth into these juniors, because yes, it is the riskiest investments on the planet, but there is no greater return where you can make, for example, an Africa oil or a reservoir, which we've recommended, and you're getting 10, 20 times your money on these things.
Yeah. We've talked about the uranium sector in the past. There's a little confusion. Okay, so the Russian and U.S. treaty is expiring.
The HEU agreement, correct.
Okay. The assumption...
It's already expired. The final shipment is happening at the end of this year.
Okay. The hope for many uranium investors was that is a catalyst that is going to reduce supply.
Correct.
Is that intact, or are the Russians now going to convert those on their own?
Well, the Russians always have been converting their nuclear warheads into the highly enriched uranium. The Russians were downblending their nuclear warheads to provide the Americans. So 1 in every 10 homes in America is powered by Russian nuclear fuel, okay? Now, there's something called a transitional agreement, which the Russians said, by 2016, we're going to provide up to 50% of your previous demand. There's no talk about price. There's no fixed price. And the Russians are saying up to. What does that mean? Well, where are the Americans going to get the other half from? This time, the Russians have different dance partners, the Chinese, the Middle Eastern, India. And the Russians are doing something different, which 20 years ago they didn't. What happened 20 years ago to the Russians? The USSR fell apart. The country was bankrupt. The Americans were the most powerful country in the world. Today, I truly believe that Russia is an equal power to America and has more friends than the Americans. Putin is a very powerful leader, and he's a brilliant leader. Today, the Russians are going to countries, like for example Sri Lanka, which nobody is talking about. They're not only financing, they're providing the money, they're providing the nuclear plant and life of facility supply of uranium. So they're going totally vertically integrated. The Americans can't provide that. GE is trying to compete with these guys. They can't because they can't. They're struggling to provide the financing, who's going to build these reactors, and then who's going to provide the nuclear fuel. So the Americans in 1960 produced over 35 million pounds of uranium. They were the biggest consumer back then. They're still the biggest consumer today. The difference is they've reduced their production by over 90%. America needs to increase their domestic production of uranium, and going to ISR is the nearest term solution for it.
As far as the uranium play, we've talked about Uranium Energy Corp, UEC, with Amir Adnani.
Yep.
Same CEO, or I guess he's the chairman of BRIC of UEC. Is that still a good play and a recommendation of yours?
It's in our recommendation. It was the number 3 pick on our uranium big webinar that we did with U.S. Secretary of Energy Spencer Abraham, Canada's Energy Minister, Lady Barbara Judge, Rick Rule, and if you just invested, when we put that in mid-April, you would have made 50% on your money. When we first recommended Uranium Energy Corp, it was under 25 cents and it ran to $7.
Yeah.
Why? Because you find a young, smart, aggressive guy, which the management own over 20% of the company. There's patterns to the right type of success.
Yeah.
He is completely aligned to making this deal work because most of his net worth is in this company. Then he took an exploration company and now he's the lowest cost producer. He's one of the newest mines in the world that brings on this uranium production. He went and got Li Ka-shing, who's the wealthiest Asian man in all of Asia. He's the Warren Buffett of Asia. We got Rick Rule, who's a legend in investing, to provide $20 million for him to develop Goliad. So Amir's positioned his company to provide low-cost production when uranium does pull up. But let's face it, the spot price of uranium is half of what it was pre-Fukushima. But today, you can't produce the material for what it's trading for. Eventually, something has to break.
So what is that catalyst? Is it this Russian treaty expiring, or?
I think it's going to be a couple of catalysts. The first catalyst, nobody expected what happened in Fukushima to happen. Okay, that was a black swan event. You had 40 reactors like that churn off. 10 have already applied to come back online. That's going to be the first catalyst. And remember, half of all of the LNG consumed in the world is done by 2 countries. Japan, 38%, and Korea, 12%. So the Japanese are paying $17 per MCF for this expensive gas-powered energy, and it's crippling their economy. They have no choice but to go with nuclear. Now, it may take longer. It may take 2-3 years for uranium to go up to $70, $80. But if you're willing to make a double or triple or quadruple, who cares?
Yeah.
You know we're near the bottom. Companies are pulling back production. They can't make money. I think this is how you make money in a market. You invest in things that nobody is talking about and you sell when they're popular. It's a contrarian investment.
In closing, looking at the general economy right now, how do you like the environment just for individuals in general as far as the economy? Are we looking at a recovery, a real sustainable recovery?
I'm not smart enough to know about the general economy. I really focus on my junior resource sector, and this is exactly the market I love because I can get full warrants. Our subscribers can get the access to the best management teams at a discount. You don't have to overpay. You just got to be patient. I call it rattlesnake investing.
Yeah.
You just hang out and wait. And when the opportunity's there, you got to snap up and grab it. And I love this market. And I don't think we're going to be out of the woods for another couple of years. But it's the choices you make today that are going to position yourself for the big upswing.
It's great advice. Marin Katusa of kcresearch.com. Thank you so much, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Rattlesnake investing. There's your title.